Hello and welcome to Jack Fleming Artistry. As you can see in the background, I am in different surroundings than my normal studio area. I just moved into a new shop here. I have a new sign commission that I'm about to start, and I thought, maybe doing this project in here would be a good way to show you guys the new shop and to show you the process of how I'm going to go about making this. It's going to be a wood cutout sign that's going to be pretty significantly large. So let's go ahead and get started with the process of that, and I'll take a couple of breaks here and there and show you guys around the new shop. Okay, right now I'm cleaning the surface off. The company that I'm doing the sign for, they have an existing logo and something that was designed by somebody else, but they wanted a hand painted sign. So I took their logo, went on my computer and figured it out to size, printed that off as a line drawing, and now I've got to take and tape these together so that I can have a paper pattern to work from so that I can make my wood cut out and make it accurately. So I'm going to go ahead and tape these together, and then we'll get going to the next part. Thought real quick while I'm doing this I would talk to y'all a little bit about some of the reasons why I'm doing it the way I'm doing it right now. If I have an existing image, I know there are a lot of different ways to go about transferring that onto the wood that I'm going to be making this sign from. What I've done in the past that I really liked doing when I'd make pounce patterns and stuff from somebody's existing digital file. I've got a sign shop in a town nearby that I would have go ahead and print that kind of like what I've got here, but on one solid piece of paper, and that town's about 30 minutes away. So to save an hour of driving, I went ahead and just did this on my computer at the house. It's kind of another reason why I'm showing you guys this, because if you've got a regular printer at home, you can print something like this to work from. I went into Adobe Illustrator. I know not everyone has that, but if you've got an image that kind of looks like a coloring sheet, so it's just line art, you can go into your printer, set it to print, and have it print out as tiles. And that's what this is. It's all printed out as tiles. So that's one reason, again, why I'm doing it on paper like this as tiles. Is just somewhat out of laziness for not wanting to drive all the way over to another town. But two, I guess it's a little bit more DIY. I don't have a printer big enough to print on a big roll of paper. And I thought it'd be cool to show you guys this. Like I said, something you can do at home. Another way of transferring the image that I know a lot of people do, and I've done in the past, enough to where I know that I don't like it, is to project it with a projector. I have a projector. I use it sometimes for murals, but if I'm doing something that's got to be accurate, I don't like using that projector because it distorts things. It stretches them. It might have them a little bit keystoned, where it's like if you look at a square, it's skinnier at one end and bigger at the other. And when I'm dealing with lettering and something that's got to be exact, I don't want to have to fool with that and all the time that it takes to try and line it up and get it right and everything else. Especially if I've got to do it over and over and over again. I'm going to be cutting this out on wood into one big piece, and then I'm going to be painting, different parts of it. And I'm probably going to have to transfer this image on top of that 2, 3, 4, 5 times. We'll see. But that gives you a little bit of the reason why I'm doing it the way I am. Trying to think of, I guess another way, if you've got a paper pattern, and I mentioned pouncing. I do pounce patterns. This would be really good if you've got an electro pounce, which I have one. I don't have it set up in the shop here yet. just moving in. If you had an electro pounce, once you had all this paper together, you can set it up on your sign painter's easel with a metal backing on it and run over that, and it'll put little bitty holes everywhere. So you can use pounce powder. I use baby powder, or sometimes chalk powder from like a chalk line that you get at the hardware store. Anyhow, you can run that over your wood or whatever it is that you're painting onto, and it will leave a chalk imprint there for you. But right now I don't have my electro pounce set up, so I'm actually probably going to end up transferring most of this with Cerl paper. But for right now, I'm going to go ahead and finish taping this off, throw it back onto Hyperlapse, and then we'll work on transferring it to our wood. Okay, I have set up on 2 tables here. They're just regular old folding tables. I've got a sheet that's 4 foot by 8 foot of MDO. MDO is like a sign grade plywood. It's basically plywood that has a little skin on the outside of it that's kind of like MDF. It's super, super smooth. This piece came primed. Normally when I get it, I end up priming my own. The only MDO that I could find in Dallas-Fort Worth area at the moment was this here that came primed. Alright, so the next up, we're going to take our design here and unfold it, lay it out where we need it. They wanted a 4 foot sign. I'm going to lay this out like I need to, get it lined up. Okay, one thing I found whenever I used to do window splash work, you know, advertisement on windows for businesses, I found that I really like leaving a white border around the outside of stuff, or maybe a different color. So right now I'm going to go through and I'm going to go probably about 1 inch away from everything that's going to be the outside edge on this with my red pen and put a border out here, and then trace that border off, and we'll cut that out. So. Okay, now that I've got that little border drawn off all the way around, it's time to break out my handy dandy Cerl paper. I'm going to go ahead and just trace this outside line. I like to use a drawing pencil, a little bit softer than a regular writing pencil. I used to use a ballpoint pen, but I found that it ended up tearing through my paper sometimes, or I just didn't feel as smooth with filling my lines as I did when I use a pencil. So I'm going to use a pencil, Cerl paper, get that traced out, and then we can start cutting the shape out. Alright, not sure how well you can see it in the video. Pull this off the camera stand here. And, well, here. Okay, so that left me a blue line that I can use to cut my design out with. A little bit hard to see in the camera here, but we'll get that cut out and we'll move to the next part. All right, so I'm all set up here now to cut this out here in front of the shop. Here's my shop truck. Beautiful shop. Check out the view I get down the road here. It's actually kind of cool because if anybody's coming, I'm right here at the end of the road, so I can see who's headed towards me. Let's go ahead and cut this out. Oh, just to show y'all real quick, I'm going to be using the jigsaw here. You can get these at hardware stores anywhere. I didn't pay full price for mine. I go to the pawn shop and get tools like this. Anyhow, let's go ahead and cut this out. All right, for a guy with back problems, that kind of hurt my back. I learned something a long time ago, and that's the best time to clean up after a project is right after you're done doing it. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean up, and then we'll get to the next part. Okay, I'm gonna trace off some of this. I'm not gonna trace off all the details right now. I really just need the outline of the robot, and then I'm gonna work on the background part of the circle design that's behind him first, and we'll work from the back forward. So let's go ahead and do it. All right, so I'm gonna let that dry for probably 7-8 minutes, something like that. Open up the doors in here so we get a little bit of air through and get some of those fumes out, and then we'll come back and second coat that and try to get that effect a little bit better for the final coat. All right, let's hit it again. Figured I'd show you guys real quick one of the things I'm doing. It's not necessarily in there graphic, but I thought it'd look really cool. Take this mask off. Okay, here we go. So what I'm doing is I'm taking my spray can and barely pushing back so that I can get like a little star effect in the background here with this kind of nebula thing that's going to be going on. I got one more color I'm going to do a few little dotted star things with. I won't put it on hyperlapse this time, and I'll show you guys how I do that. All right, I got this can of yellow that's almost completely out, and it just kind of spits and sputters anyways. So I'm gonna come over here away and spray away from that, see if I can get, oh, it's spitting perfect. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna get spitting away from it and then just lightly come across. So, hope it's not too much. I think when we're all said and done here, and this is dried out and I get the other colors on, it's gonna look perfect. If I have to, I might come in with the airbrush and highlight the center of that orange just a little bit, maybe a little bit of white. But I think it's gonna look pretty good. All right, we've let this dry overnight so that the spray paint that I put down on it had enough time to kind of gas out. That means I can spray some rattle can clear over the top of that today to kind of help even out the finish on it. It's a little flat and gloss at the moment because of the techniques that I had to use to make that that fade there with the orange. Before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and hit the edges of this with some paint just to kind of prime that edge from where we cut through with the saw, and let it sit over the weekend and then get back on it on Monday. All right, I wanted to show you this setup before we got going. I have transferred my image using Saral paper onto my wood. You can't really see it in the camera, but it's really faint light blue. That's going to tell me where to paint. And if you guys want to know a little bit more about that, I have some other videos that are how to transfer designs, images. Anyhow, what I've done, and again, kind of in this video, I'm showing you guys how you can do this, set it up without a lot of expense. I went and bought two 2x4s, $3 a piece. I've got 2 screws holding this up, and it makes a sign painter's easel. Having just moved in here, I haven't set mine up yet. It'll be on the other side of the shop, so for now, we're doing this lean-to sign painter's easel. Works just as good. But that'll allow me to sit here and paint upright as opposed to being hunched over all the time and hurting my back. So let's go ahead and get started. Thought it might be important real quick to note that in this first part where I'm doing the color, I'm not being super duper precise. When I'm coming into these corners like this right here, chisel out my brush, which means I'm flattening it out. So if you turn it, it's skinny or flat. But I'm turning it to a way to where I'm using the skinny side of that. I'm not really worried about it being too sharp of a corner because it's all going to get covered over with black outline eventually. So my edges don't have to be perfect in this layer. They're going to get covered over by the next layer of color that goes up next to it, and eventually they're also going to have the edges covered with black. So just kind of a thing. I know some people get stressed out, spend a lot of extra time trying to make that first color perfect, and you don't really have to. Because again, you're going to fix those mistakes with the next color and eventually fix all the mistakes with black. When I go to do the black layer, that one has to be precise. This layer, not so much. Let's get back to painting. All right. Figured real quick I'd show you guys a little bit of what my strategy is on this. So I took teal. I'm using alpha enamel for that. Anyhow, I took the teal and did all the teal part. That's the shadows for the part that I'm doing at the moment. So I started with that because I'm going to lighten that color to make the main part. So rather than mixing up my light part and then coming back and doing the shadows this way, I can take whatever's left of that teal color, use it to lighten my white. I went ahead and put a bunch of white in my cup. See if y'all can see that. So now I'm gonna lighten that with some of what's left over. And we want it to be light enough that there's going to be good contrast, but we don't want it to look like white. So, just show you guys on my popsicle stick here. I'm going to take that, I'm going to bring it over here, and that to me kind of looks like white. So we want to add more. And I find that it's easier to darken white than it is to lighten my base color. So I like to add my color to white as opposed to adding white to a color, because you'll end up making way more paint than you need going that route. Alright, so is this looking more like teal? That looks more like teal, light teal. Let's go ahead and just put the rest of what I got in here into there. And actually, another trick real quick, if it's not quite dark enough, there's still teal all over the inside of that cup. So what I can do, that's still, I want it to be a little darker. So I'm actually going to utilize that paint that's in that cup, I'm just going to go ahead and dump this here. That leaves some of my light left in the other cup. So it makes the amount of light color less, and it makes the amount of the regular teal darker. I think this is going to be our color. This looks way better. You can probably see if I tilt my cups towards you. This is the new one. That's the one that was too light. And I think I like that. So we're going to go with that. Go ahead and paint the next part here, and then keep moving on. I do want to show y'all something here, and this is something I learned a long time ago when I was painting houses. And that's working a wet edge. So I'm going to start up here in this corner with this larger area, and what it means to work a wet edge. I didn't understand it when I first heard it, so that's why I thought I'd mention it to y'all here. I just put that line down. This edge of that line is wet, this edge over here is wet. If I let that dry before I come and put another brush stroke next to it, then it's going to end up with a line where you can see where the one layer overlapped the other layer. And if we want it to be as smooth as possible, we want to keep working on those wet edges while they're as wet as we can. So as I come across this part of the robot here, I'm probably going to clean this up real fast. As I come across this part of this robot, there's some big areas here, and I want to keep that wet as long as I possibly can. I'm actually going to come back up into that. Hopefully y'all can see past my hand. I'm working the edge of that till to get it right where I want it. I'll come down here, work this part of this. But now when I come back, and I see people that'll do the whole outside and then they'll come back and fill in. And I personally don't like doing that, because when you do that whole outside and you come back and fill in, this is dried. And where this part overlaps that part, there's a line in the sheen, and you can get that to go away and be smoother if you work across. So I'm just going to try and work across. If I want to get that top part along there, I'm going to get a little bit of this, and I'm going to come back and hit that with a short stroke. But right now I can work that. And I want to work quick, because the quicker that I work on this, the more time or the more those are wet while I'm coming across. It allows that paint to level out while it's drying. And that's really what it is whenever you don't work a wet edge, is it's not leveling out, because your new layer is sitting on top of a dry layer. So real quick, I've got that edge up there before I get going too much farther. I'm going to work a little bit of that, starting up here in the corner. If you remember, I told you guys this doesn't have to be too perfect, because it's going to get covered up with some black in the corners. But I'm going to come not too far, because I don't want all this to be dry when I come back down here with another stroke. I'm going to go ahead and come to the bottom real quick. Same thing, cutting across these bottoms while they're still wet, giving it a little bit for me to work into. And I'm gonna keep showing you here for just a minute, because there's something I want to show you that's about to happen where I'm gonna have to make a decision. Some of this paint back here is, it didn't work my brush stroke too smooth. I still got time because it's still wet. It's kind of one of the joys of working with enamels. Okay, so what's about to happen is there's a great part that comes through here, or maybe it's buttons or something. There's going to be a long black rectangle in the middle of this, which means I'm going to have to work the top and the bottom. So I'm going to come and I'm going to work just to the edge of that. And I think it's a little bit rounded. If not, I'll be able to clean that up. You might be able to see in the video, I don't think I can zoom in, but there's a big piece of paint that's overlapped there. It was real thick coming off my brush, so I'm working that out. Okay, now I've got to make a decision. I want to work that wet edge, but now, because I'm coming across here and I'm coming across there, I have two wet edges. So I just kind of have to let one of them end up with a line in the paint, but because I'm doing it this way, I'll only end up with one. I'm going to come all the way around and come back and we'll only have one spot, as opposed to if I outline the whole thing, again, I'm going to have that line all over the place. So I'm going to put this back on hyperlapse, finish up this part right here, probably finish the rest off camera, and we can come back and do another color after that. All right, over the past couple days, I've been painting on this here and there, letting a couple of layers dry. I'm down to doing the white and the black. Before I do that, I need to mark a perfect circle around the outside, and I'm going to show you guys how I do that. Okay, hopefully this isn't too hard for y'all to see, but I have in the very center a push pin, and to it I've taken a string and I've tied a loop, and I'm putting that as close to the wood as I can underneath the plastic part of the push pin. That way I can pull on it and it doesn't go anywhere. After that, I've taken a rope or a string, whatever you got lying around, and I've found where this needs to go as far as the hideout, and I took my string, and rather than tie it, because it's too hard to figure out the measurement, what I did is I made a loop that puts the edge of my pencil right where I need it. I pulled my loop back, I taped it, I pulled my loop back again and taped it, so when I pull on this, it doesn't come loose. That goes over here, my pencil goes here. The only thing that's really tricky on this is finding the center of your circle. And it's actually really not too hard. You draw two parallel lines, which I've got one here and one here, that have to be the same length. And whenever they hit at the same length on both sides, you can take the corners and make an intersection from the two. And that'll give you about where center is. After that, I actually use my string and kind of dial it in a little bit because it's not always perfect on that. But I'm pretty darn close to perfect here. I'm going to go ahead and take, and I'm only going to mark this where I need to. So I'm marking here. All the way down to where that hand is. I'm going to skip, mark over here. Okay, I've got one more spot. Get this extra rope out of the way. And that's going to be from this arm down to my letter. And that gives me my line, so I can go ahead and paint my white. So, that's next. All right, this should be the last day on the sign. I've got an assistant today. Cherry Bomb Pinstriping out of Dallas. She's actually come to help me out because I got a little overwhelmed this week with stuff, and she's going to get started on doing the black lines for our galactic sign here. And I'm just going to put it on, what do you call it, hyperlapse, and let it go. Okay, so yesterday we had Cherry Bomb Pinstriping came by to help me out for a little while I finished up a motorcycle and another vehicle that was here and a whole bunch of other stuff. she got a lot of the black done for me. I'm going to go through, clean it up, finish it up. There's a whole bunch of stuff that I told her not to worry about the details, just fill in the big parts, and that's what she got done. So I'm going to wrap this sign up, and let's enjoy and have fun getting it done. Alright, right now I have this upside down on my easel, mostly because I'm getting ready to put a second coat of paint on this outside edge, and I think that's going to be the easiest way to work on this top part. I'm going to get the second coat done on everything, see how it looks. Hopefully we'll be done after that. If not, I'll end up putting a third coat. I'm actually using Rust-Oleum for this outside edge because it soaks up so much paint. I don't want to use One Shot or Alpha or Ronin or anything like that. So let's go ahead and get her done. Alright, thank you guys for sticking around this far into the video. Couple of things as far as these signs are concerned. You might have noticed in the video I worked on this over about 2 weeks. During that time I had a lot of other vehicles and stuff that were already scheduled that came in and out of the shop, which is kind of nice whenever I don't have to work on something start to finish, because I can let different layers dry and have enough time for the paints and stuff to gas out before putting other layers on it. So that's another note, I guess, that you can take from this. Trying in this video as best as I can to give you guys a lot of information, as many different, tricks and stuff that I can, different ways of going about stuff. There's multiple ways of painting a sign like this, and I'll show you. Here's the finished of the head sign. This one's 2 feet wide. The sign in the back is 4 feet, I believe, tall. But had a lot of fun with these. And if you guys have questions, or if there's things you'd like to know more about, or if you're an old school pro that has way more experience than me and you've got suggestions for things I could do differently or better, let me know. It's all about community, I think, and sharing what we know and helping each other grow. And that's kind of why I made this video and made it as long as I did. Again, if you have questions, please let me know in the comments. I'm going to get out of the way for the end of this, let you guys see the whole thing here, maybe do a couple little close-ups and stuff. And if you can, stick around and watch one of the other videos that'll come up at some point in time, somewhere around here. Kind of helps YouTube to know that people like watching me, and makes them show my videos to more people, which, we want the word to get out. Y'all have a good day. Keep painting.